All righty. Okay, I think we're on, friends. That was a bit of a rough start there, but I think we're on. Let me just get confirmation that we are on. Give it a second. Hello, friends. How are you? Hello,
Hey
Laura. Hello,
there.
Andrés. How's everyone doing?
Yvette, we're doing perfect.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, we had a little bit of a hiccup here, but I think we're live. Let's just see if we can get confirmation. I
Mhm.
know. All right. All right. Looks like we might be in business.
Yes.
Awesome. 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 All right. Welcome everyone to Wicked Opportunities Live. This is our somewhat monthly live stream of the Wicked Opportunities podcast brought to you by TFSX. My name is Yvette Montero Salvatico, and you're probably wondering why I'm all by myself on this side of the studio. Frank, let me take the helm today. He is, I know, actively listening, and I'm sure will be very active in the chat because he can't help himself. But I am excited to welcome a couple of folks to the conversation. We will do our witty banter as we like to do here at TFSX before we formally get started. Let everybody join. But welcome to the Wicked Opportunities live stream stage, Laura and Andres. How are you two doing?
Great. Well, super excited about this opportunity of sharing some visions here.
Fantastic, fantastic. How is your 2024 going so far?
It's going well. And I think that as a dreamer and idealist myself, I think it's going fantastic and it's full of life and opportunities. So, yeah. So, just trying to make things happen as always.
Yeah, like the first month is already down, January 31st already. How did that happen? I feel like this year is going to be faster than any other. Andres, you're joining us from Mexico today?
Yes, from Guadalajara, Mexico.
And Laura, where are you about these days?
Guadalajara as well. We're
Awesome,
from
awesome.
the same spot.
From the same spot, just different offices. Fantastic, fantastic. I literally, just about literally, just got off of a plane from Dubai. So I will be completely honest and say that I just had a nap because I'm a little bit jet lagged. We flew in on Saturday. Nicole Baker Rosa from my team and I had an opportunity to do some work there in Dubai for a week. It was amazing. It was amazing. I'm glad to be home. But yeah, I'm glad that travel is back to being a thing. Andres, I know you've been doing a little bit of travel. Have you gone outside of Mexico? Are you within Mexico mostly this year so far with your travel?
So this year, not just inside Mexico, but before the ending of the last year, the last couple of months, I've been in South and Central America. So I'm happy as well that traveling and the face-to-face meetings are on again. So really excited about that.
Laura, have you had a chance to get to any other destinations outside of Mexico this year? Do you have anything planned for this year?
I'm coming to Atlanta in March.
That's exciting.
Yes. So far, I just traveled here in Mexico, but I think it was like something very enjoyable because always a time for leisure. It's good for the spirit and for the creative spirit more than anyone.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true. It's true. We have a lot of exciting travel planned in 2024 at TFSX. I am back in Dubai in 16 days, which
Ah,
don't tell my doctor or any of or my mother. My mother knows.
Or
She's
your family, yes.
yeah, yeah, so that's it for the Dubai travel, I think, for this year. We just had two trips. And then I don't know, I think in March I'm going somewhere really exciting and important. I wish I could remember. Wait,
I
no,
heard.
I know it's Mexico. I'm going to Mexico. That's fantastic. We are so excited to be bringing our foundations program to Mexico City in March. That's part of what inspired this conversation, although that's not what this conversation is about specifically, but that definitely inspired us. We've been a fond partner and friend of Andrés and his organization, Change Consulting, for many, many years through the Design Futures Initiative and the like. But this year, we wanted to formalize that partnership. And so we are bringing our program to Mexico City, and we're very excited about it. If you haven't heard, lots of other locations we're traveling to this year. We're bringing the program back in person in a big way. We'll be in Dallas, we'll be in LA, we'll be in Atlanta, we'll be in Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm pretty sure I'm missing, New York City as well. And we'll be doing the program once live online in April if you're still wanting to Zoom it up. And then we're bringing back our retreat. So we'll be doing our week-long or 3-day-long retreat, transformations of natural foresight. And that'll be in, I think that's September in Maine. So you could check all of that out on our website and learn more about that. But today, friends, we're really excited about this conversation. And we're so happy so many of you are joining us. Of course, this conversation will be recorded and we'll be sharing it. We wanted to have a conversation, a candid, loving, informative, thought-provoking conversation about the future of Latin American foresight. I have been a foresight professional myself now for, over a decade. My background before that was in strategy and finance. I worked for Disney and for other great companies. But some of you may not know that I am a first-generation American. And my parents immigrated to this country in the 1960s on what was called the Peter Pan flights. And that's because children were being sent over to this country basically as orphans. My mother was 15 and she had to care for my uncle who was 8 at the time. And they were sent here to live with people they didn't even know. And it was a set of flights commissioned by the Archdiocese in Miami, Florida. And so my family's origins in this country are through those roads. And of course, I grew up in a household that spoke predominantly Spanish. I learned Spanish before I learned English. You would not know that now with my Spanish acumen. But I understand everything. So don't talk about me on this live stream, Andres and Laura, because I understand it all 100%. But obviously, my Hispanic heritage and culture is so important to me. It is who I am. It is part of my identity. And through the Future School, KEDGE, and now TFSX, I've had the honor and privilege of working with a number of organizations, institutions, and individuals from across Latin America using foresight to help support their organizations themselves and their countries. And I just, TFSX, our mission is to democratize the field of foresight. And that mission, combined with my own personal life story, really propels me to have this conversation and to open the dialogue around the future of foresight in Latin America. I firmly believe that unlocking our inner futurist and unlocking the inner futurist of those across Latin America and those outside of Latin America that wish to see that region rise to its potential. I just think that this conversation is so critical. And I just want to start by saying that I recognize I am speaking to you from the United States of America, specifically Kissimmee, Florida. I am not currently a resident or a citizen of Latin America. As I've said, my background is such that I have an incredible passion and love for the people of Latin America. And I believe that love is really what makes the Latin American people unique, is that cariño, that love, that embrace, that amor, the besos that you get from everybody that you meet. Maybe not so much since COVID, but I think it's coming back. Is it coming back? I don't know. But that's like you enter a Latin American country and you feel the embrace of those people. And that is what they have to offer this world. And we talk all the time about love and foresight here at TFSX, about how it is one and hand in hand. And so I am compelled, and I feel a lot of passion. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring the program to Mexico City, because we just believe that there's opportunity here for the people of Latin America to unlock this ability. And so I am honored to be joined by my esteemed panelists who are, in fact, representing Latin America and have unique perspectives on this topic. They are both professional futurists, well regarded in the field, and they're doing the work. They're on the ground and they're doing the work. So we wanted to have a really candid conversation today, and we encourage you to participate in that conversation in the chat and ongoing. We want this to be the first of many conversations we have to see how we can unite as a community of futurists to shine a light on the work that's already being done in Latin America and how we can do more to empower and embolden the futurists and find more futurists and enable more futurists within the region. So that's my why for being here tonight at 7 p.m. on a jet-lagged evening after a refreshing, not so refreshing nap. I'm going to turn it over to my panelists. We'll start with Laura, who I'd love if you could share to the audience. I know many of the people here are friends and family of yours that know you, but for those that don't, can you please share who you are, your background, however you want to frame your background in Foresight, and then just what have been your personal experiences, professional experiences with futures in Latin America? I'll turn it over to you, Laura.
Thank you. Well, first of all, this is like the most warm welcome we have received. And you have doing empathy with these abrazos and besos. Like, yes, it's something shared within our culture. So who am I? Well, this is Laura Maceira. I'm a designer, and I am a curious-minded person who's always looking for new possibilities. Like, it's kind of my keywords on my personality, like always finding a way on how to do new things, better things. And I met Andrés talking about futures here in Guadalajara. He's like a great leader on the topic. And I was really attracted to that because it filled me with hope. Sometimes thinking about futures is kind of chaotic. Sometimes it's kind of threatening as well. And especially when you are speculating with dystopian scenario. But it also, I think it's futurists are a community of people that thinks that people that think that things can have another way. Like, we have a say into the future, like take apart this destination kind of predicament and take action into the future. So I work as a professionist creating ideas. I really tied with this idea that we transform ideas into actions through words, through visuals, or through objects that we design. So we have a really great responsibility on where are we taking this narrative, and futures has to do a lot with narratives. So that has been like an easy path for me to understand. And also to think about responsibility, being a mother of 2 little children, it really makes you to commit to the future, not only for us, what we want, but what we want to leave to others. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying to be like futures advocate, try to make other people to understand the relevance of this. This is not a religion, it's more like vision. It could be adopted from any kind of profession. And in my experience as a TSFX alumni, I'm super thrilled you're coming to Mexico, because that's like an extended bridge to make or bring closer this opportunity. where you not only are learning about frameworks and visions, but you are becoming part of a network of professionals that have a shared vision, and that they are, in my experience, have been super generous, because Futures is welcoming like multi-perspective side. I think that has been enriching. And I want to give the word to Andres, because otherwise he'll be
No,
just like,
I love everything. I love everything you said. I just, before Andres jumps in, because we will let Andres talk. We will let the man on the panel speak. Everybody just relax. Just relax. I have to say, Laura, that when you said about your children, like as a mother, that really hit me, and it made me think about the other very unique, of course every culture loves its children, of course, but I think what's interesting within Latin American culture is the family is very, very, very important. Before I joined live stream, my mother was calling me because I should be at dinner right now at my mother's house. I eat dinner at my mother's house 5 days a week. She lives in this neighborhood. And I had already told her, I can't make it today. I have a live stream with Laura and Andres, so I can't make it. So she was calling me as I was getting on to the Zoom to tell me she had packed me my dinner as well as my daughter's dinner. And I had mentioned earlier that I didn't have any postage stamps. She said she had put postage stamps in my bag with my dinner. My whole point in that example, which is not unique to Hispanic families, is that I think a culture that puts families and a respect for their elders and their lineage and their ancestors, and by definition their future and their children, is just so perfect for adopting foresight. Like, I just feel like there are certain things that we can attach this to in terms of a narrative. So we could talk more about that here in a moment. But I didn't want to lose sight of that statement you made and how that prompted for me. And I'm curious, folks on the chat, if there's a similar sort of feeling for them. Again, I know Latin America is not unique in our love of families, but families are certainly in the center of our culture. So Andres, what is your reason for being here? Give everybody a little bit of insight into your background, who you are, and why, and how your experience has been with futures in Latin America.
Yes, sure. So first of all, when I hear you talking and Laura, it reminds me why I'm here, and why I'm always like a futures advocate, is because I feel like so inspired and connected. But anyway, my background is on design, and I always been working on innovation. So I come from the field of business innovation. And like, I don't know, maybe 13, 14 years ago, I found myself with the futures and the foresight field. And I just felt this revelation. Like, I I just figure out the matrix, and it turns out now I had like the tools and the mindset like to provoke things, and I was no longer a passenger. I was also being able to become, just someone that can lead its own way and also lead others, friends, colleagues, and influence positively in my context. So that's why I believe, a lot in the futures, and being myself like a dreamer and an idealist. I'm always like trying to see, because it's not easy, trying to see all the positive thing that we have on our world. So professionally, I've been working, for the last 12 years on innovation with this foresight perspective, and I've been working not only on the private sector but also like in the public and nonprofits. So I've been working a lot in Latin America in general. I've been in Argentina, in Uruguay, in Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, Cuba. I work with the Cuban government like for 5
Next
years.
time you go to Cuba, we must partner. That is a dream of mine. And I know it will be really emotional, but I would love to partner with you the next time you have an opportunity to work anything in Cuba. I'm in.
Yes, I know. And I hope again that we can, restart that project, and I'm sure we will, but yes, definitely.
Yes.
So
I'm putting it out into the universe. I'm manifesting it.
Manifesting, exactly.
Make it a
So
combo, please.
Laura wants in. Laura wants in.
I'm sure we will talk a lot more, about all the countries and the possibilities later with the conversation. But just to finish, so at the end, I've been always involved like in global initiatives, that I was part of the board of directors for the Design Futures Initiative. And then I was just trying to work with all the Latin community of futurists and people doing like Foresight. So I've been, around for a while, and I'm really excited to, be in this conversation. I take it very seriously with a lot of respect. Obviously, I will talk, from my perspective, which doesn't represent necessarily like what means for the whole Latin American context, because we will talk later. It's huge in all ways, in all senses. So yeah, so that's my background, and we've been working together for several years. So really excited to be again sharing with you my passion and what makes us, good friends and colleagues.
Yeah. No, I love it. Again, I so appreciate both of you joining for this conversation. And I respect what you're saying, that we're, obviously we didn't create the construct of this idea of the Latin American region. As human beings, we create these constructs to try to make sense of the world. We create regions, we put lines on a map. Those are all artificial, right? But clearly there is, a common, certain common elements across these cultures and countries that we call Latin America. And we're not trying to paint with a broad stroke. We understand that there are nuances, uniqueness across the board within countries, even obviously. And so our attempt here to have this conversation is not to belittle or sweep under the rug any of those differences, but rather to have a conversation about how strategic foresight and foresight can be implemented across these types of countries and regions across the world, and what is the state of foresight as we see it today, and how can we continue to grow that movement within what is now, the region that is considered the LATAM region. So let's start with, why is it important to have this conversation about foresight in Latin America, and why do you two feel compelled as foresight practitioners to talk specifically about not just the field and the health and the future of the field, but the field within the countries that you practice? So, Andres, I'll start with you. Why do you think it's important to talk about this issue of foresight in Latin America?
So I think that's a really complex and interesting question to start with. But I would say that it is really necessary to start having this kind of conversation, because in Latin America, a lot of things are happening, projects and initiatives. And sometimes I just feel that we need to be more connected. Sometimes I just get to know about projects and initiatives that sometimes feel isolated. Sometimes we collaborate as well, but the region is huge, and we are, of course, part of the same from the same region, but at the same time, we're so different that it's really hard sometimes just to connect or to be part of the same mindset and stuff like that. So I think that's the first thing. The second one is that I truly believe that Latin America has the potential to become like the next global mega region, or the next global economy that can, drive and influence a lot of things in the world. So I think I don't know, it's like a wicked problem, right? We are in the wicked opportunities podcast, so it's like a wicked problem. But at the same time, it's full of opportunities. And I think that it's like a matter of building the bridges of the cultural aspects that we share, like our history, our ancestry, our values. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we live the same reality, right? Sometimes even the distance make it completely different. So I think that be aware of that, be conscious, but at the same time, having this kind of conversation may help us to impact in a positive way, just to start imagining like futures when we can be together, or at least imagine to begin with a new narrative where we can start sharing beyond that geographic sense of nearest.
Yeah. I think the narrative is so important. I think it's easy to dismiss. I mean, my work personally in Latin America in Foresight really began with the Walt Disney Company and Disney International. And the Latin American region was one of the first that within Disney adopted Foresight and started using Foresight across all of its functions. And in retrospect, I think it's so interesting that it was Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, that was the group that made up Latin America, that they were the first to really launch Walt Disney International, excuse me, the Walt Disney Company into the future, into Foresight being practiced formally. I think that I remember working with the advanced practitioners and them telling me it's difficult for us to convince people about Foresight when, you know, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. we could lose the valuation of the currency to the point where the spreadsheet that I just made 4 hours ago is no longer valid. And so I think, you know, it's obviously unique challenges. We see this across the world, but Latin America seems to have these acute challenges of volatility. But I think that's why I get so excited about the idea of, as you said, putting people in the driver's seat. They don't just have to be a passenger in this bus to the future, you know, and helping people realize and unlocking that within them, I think is such a powerful thing to help change the narrative of like, we can't plan for anything because the currency could collapse this morning, you know, so nobody wants to plan for anything. And that's difficult, right? So, Laura, what do you think about this idea of, you know, why it's so important to have this conversation we're having tonight?
Well, I have this perspective that is kind of united to what you're saying about the driver's seat. I come from the design field, and we have been looking how is shifting the role of the designer from being an executor to having a seat at the table. And I think that analogy applies to futures, since especially on Foresight, there's so much strategy going on. Yeah. And I think this is like a key moment at history, because it's like futures is still evolving. Like, you don't have to wait for it to be something consolidated and then 20 years later get into the wave and
yes,
pull the framework and try to apply it when they are already futures past gone. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's like people are like, oh, I can't do Foresight because I don't have a 5-year plan. And we're like, that's great. Don't do a 5-year plan. Skip that part. You don't have to wait. I love it.
So I think it's like futures is happening right now. Communities are opening. We are still like exploring and widening. And I think the difference is, on one side, there are so many platforms that have us like globally connected, interconnected.
Yes.
And also is this perspective of futurists that they need to make or to have multi-perspective views. So we are invited. It's not like just you can go, but you are also invited to be and have a seat at the table. So if we don't take that opportunity, I don't know what we're waiting for.
Gosh, I love that. I think it reminds me of the idea that I always share with our clients and our TFSX training participants, is that, you know, none of us have the same present or the same past, but the place that we can co-create is the future. And it is the common link between all of us. And I think what LATAM and the LATAM region and the countries of Latin America bring to the table is so unique and so powerful and so needed. I am going to agree with what you said, Andres, about you know, the region in the future becoming an economic powerhouse, you know, possibly the most important region economically. Demographically, we can see that potential, right? I'm going to take a step forward and I'm going to say that yes, and I believe it can be one of the forerunning regions as it relates to foresight. I think if we can unlock, as you said, the narrative component, there will be so much passion around it within this region. It could really define the upcoming decades, don't you think, Andres?
Totally agree, because it just is in our DNA, just in this like foresight, I don't know, like Latin American cosmology is in our DNA. Always think about our roots, our origins, also about our evolution, our destiny, because we also have like a lot of faith. We may change religions or don't have a religion, but at the end, we are a people of faith and destiny and hope and believing that everything is possible. So I think that it's only a matter of, as you both said, understand and be conscious that the future is a place where we can start agreeing, maybe for the first time, right? Because historically, of course, we share a lot of things, but sometimes we just been divided by, I don't know, different things. I don't know. I don't want to go too early in the conversation, like very political or in social issues, but I think it's part of the change of this new reality.
Again, I saw it firsthand last week in Dubai. Say what you will, I know that there are obvious concerns on many fronts as it relates to that region, but I think very few could argue the like literally shape shifting narrative that has propelled that nation to the forefront of futures thinking and foresight. When every government entity is talking about foresight, when every conversation, when they are investing so much in their people, when the highest ranking official is talking about the future and foresight continually, they believe it, they live it, and it becomes a reality. The way you think about the future directly impacts the actions you take in the present. And so if a region is back to image of the future, Pollock, it's 101, right? If we have a nation, if we have a region that has a dystopic view, a narrative of the future, that's going to inform the actions they take in the present. If we can, as you said, double down on the DNA, the hope, the fact that everything is possible, the cosmology, the idea of our origin story, of our evolution, I think that there's definitely the possibility there. What do you think, Laura?
Add creativity to that list, please.
Yes, I'm writing it right down. Creativity. Got it. Got it. Takes all of us. It takes all of us. It takes all of us. All right, let's see what else. We had we are never going to get through all these questions in one session, which is perfect because now we'll have to have a part 2 and a part 3. Many people are not just on this live stream, but just in general, many people are watching Latin America. They're watching us, right? What could they understand about futurism in Latin America? What makes foresight or futurism unique in Latin America? How is it different, Laura? Do you have a perspective on that?
Well, we kind of talked about this earlier, like this cultural heritage we have. But I want to link it like directly to one subject that I love about futurists. It's about the regenerative perspective. Like I've been reading a lot about regenerative economy or regenerative design, and I love this idea that evolution doesn't have to end up like in a Terminator, hyper technological future. It could, but there are other ways. And some of those ways are actually looking back to look forward. So I think we have a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of wisdom. And if we can reframe it in a very innovative way, I think we have a lot of resources to connect futures with what we have. And it's something that we have lived in. It's not like we have to make such an effort to fit in. So I love that part of regenerative design, or apply it to anything.
Yeah, no, I know that Frank is right out this door and he's on the chat and he's chomping at the bit. He's just dying to be in this conversation because you said that regenerative perspective. I know that that is part of his jam. And again, this is why I think it's not just my background and my heritage that leads me, my heart to this conversation. It's also because the way that we practice foresight at TFSX, natural foresight, holoptic foresight, it is recognizing that this is the natural order of things. Nature anticipates. We are part of nature. We can anticipate. We can understand emergence. We can be a part of the collective wisdom to move our species forward. It's not an invention that's outside of us. It's not something that needs to be downloaded into us. It is something we have the innate ability to and have evolved to be able to do even better. We've just forgotten in some cases, and we just think that technology is always the answer. Technology is a helpmate. It will help us connect like we're having now, but it is not the answer. It is not the utopian or dystopic answer to the future. So, Andres, what are your thoughts about this topic of futurology in Latin America, futurism in Latin America? Why is it unique? Or this conversation about the cultural aspect and the technological aspect? Jump in here wherever you'd like.
Yeah, when I first, now that you mentioned that question, I was thinking like something that make us unique is like the DNA that we've been talking about. But also I think that there's no right answer or a concrete answer right now. For example, we can talk about Afrofuturism that maybe they have pillars like, I don't know, like the culture, sci-fi, or the aesthetics. And again, if you see Latin America as a real like huge region and all the geographical space that we have, you need just simply very complex to be more dominant if we don't work together. Like, for example, if you are in Europe, maybe a 2 or 3 hours flight, you can go from one end to another. In Mexico, it's just an internal flight, right? In the same in Brazil, for example. So I think that just put in perspective, like this huge land that we're living, and also that that's one of the complexities that we live in, and sometimes that just starting this kind of conversation may help us to define what that means. Because I see other regions, for example, Dubai, it seems like now Dubai in the Futures Museum and that the future initiative that they have over there is it's the one that is leading the conversation about the futures in the world, right? Because they may have the resources, they have, well, I respect that they have something that maybe we don't, that it's like a clear leadership with a future driven on a futures proof mindset.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that it's also like unique in Mexico, that we're always trying to progress and to be, have like a better life, but at the same time we are very in a political way like conservative, or sometimes we just don't, we're afraid of moving forward.
Yes.
I'm thinking in countries like in Mexico that we are given like step backwards, but at the same time, El Salvador, which is like our neighbor, is thinking about cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And it's betting for the future. So I think that again, we share like a region, but at the same time, the land and the geographical space is just so huge that we may share values, but at the same time, we're so different in culture, even in music, right? If you hear like Latin music, you can think about 10 different, like, are you thinking about tango? Are you thinking about samba? Are you thinking about bachata or mariachi, right? So even in music, you can perceive like the cultural difference that we have. So I think that can translate that into the Latin American future, that we have so many perspectives.
Yeah. Again, the comparison to Dubai is not a fair one, and I'm the one that brought it up. But I just think, having come literally off the plane, it is quite stunning to see, a national conversation. Obviously, they have a different government structure which allows for and a different sort of religious construct tied to that governmental structure that allows for consistent messaging. And culturally, they don't necessarily perceive or explore many divergent perspectives or thoughts. I'm treading very lightly here, treading very lightly. Which, on the one hand, gosh, that makes it a lot easier. It's like, we're all part of one company. We all get the same payroll. It's a lot easier to aspire to the values that are painted on the wall when we all have sort of, free will and we're all working for different companies. Use that analogy. You're laughing because I'm skating here a little bit. It's harder to get one monolithic narrative. And so when you want to move fast and you want to move straight, I'm telling you, it's nice to have, that one point of reference. Obviously that's not what we all aspire to in terms of like how we want to be governed. So I think going back to the earlier conversation about, what does unite the Latin American community and how can we leverage that for this conversation. All right, let's jump ahead here. What type of world or narratives do you think that does futurism try to promote in Latin America? Like I mentioned, this idea of like our image of the future impacts our actions. I'm just curious when you think about the dominant narratives, either coming from Latin America or being put on top of Latin America. What are those? Are they being influenced by indigenous cultures? Are they is the region being driven a certain way, certain narratives by external forces? What do you think, Laura?
I don't know. I think we were talking about this idea of the work of some futurists here in Mexico are doing in a very like small level, but they are exploring the future of the everyday things.
I love it.
I think that's a kind of neat because with this idea you were saying, like we are all the time like in a volatile context.
Yeah.
Maybe thinking about a huge project or in a scenario where there are too many variables is kind of hard.
Yeah.
But when you think about the everyday life, and you think we are going to lose this if we keep on this path, or we could regain this other stuff if we follow this other, it's kind of interesting and makes it easier to understand like what's future's about.
More tangible, right?
Yeah, more tangible.
I love that. I think, we talk about everyday foresight as well in it's sort of different context than that, but the idea being that, this isn't something that's just for strategists, that's just for a 5-year plan or a strategic plan. This is, something we should be using in our everyday work. And so I love linking it to just how is this going to impact my everyday life if this thing goes away or if we reclaim something or what have you. What do you think, Andres, about this conversation of narratives being promoted in Latin America, either by the region itself or by others?
So, I have like a lot of thoughts. First of all, I want to bring something that Laura mentioned in a meeting that we had before jumping in, that it was like something that I think is very ironic is that in Latin America, we don't have this long-term vision, right? So also like talking about futures is like kind of hard because not even we have to be or fight against the system itself. We also have to fight against our own DNA, right? Because we just don't think in long term naturally, or sometimes it's difficult as a leader from an organization or a government just to move forward. And I also, think, and I see, at least, for example, in Mexico and some other like specific like efforts in Latin America, that foresight as a field is nothing new because we can see foresight on a statistical side or more political or demographic. But now I think that also we are just facing this VUCA, like elements in economy, that it became natural that the people that, our DNA, like we are passionate and we want changes and we are revolutionaries, right? So I think that it just became natural to use foresight as another tool just to start changing the narrative because the new and younger generations, I think that they have like a more global, holistic, like biocentric perspective, and it feels just natural that Foresight step in and start doing things. So I think also that this like the diversity of thoughts and possibilities are just becoming one, thanks to the merger of Foresight and a lot of different perspectives and actors as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that even represented here, we have, consultancies, we have design, we have change, we have strategy, different ways that Foresight's being applied in the region, right now. I like to touch on that global piece that you said, and specifically, younger futurists, which when you said it, I thought, yeah, like me. And then I thought, I'm 50. I'm not who he's talking about, but I feel young in my heart. So I'm going to loop. I'm gonna consider myself as part. Laura, do not laugh so hard at that joke. That joke was not that funny. I feel like maybe you are laughing a little. I mean, I have my grandmother's genetics, and I feel like I've done pretty well for myself at 50. But I just think it's interesting, the global, thinking about the global stage from a Foresight perspective. The Association of Professional Futurists just announced their new chairman, which is our friend Tanya Schindler, their new vice chair, Miguel Jimenez, truly becoming a global organization, right? Founded in the US for many, many years. It was led by US individuals, very, very well-respected individuals. But definitely the organization has grown globally, and we've seen a lot more representation in the membership, and now more recently in its board and its leadership. I think those examples of how Foresight as a community is embracing its global self, and even adjacent fields like when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the Inner Development Goals organization, the IDG organization that we followed closely last year in our podcast, there's a lot of cross-pollination with Foresight and Futures Thinking, and that is truly a global organization. Of course, organizations like the UN who have begun to use Foresight as well. We're seeing a lot more Foresight on the global stage. We're seeing a lot more communities of practice that have global representation. I'm curious, Andres, what do you think the role is of the Latin American futurist in those rooms, in those platforms, in those conversations? Is it unique? What should the Latin American futurist be thinking? How should they be representing? Should I not be categorizing them? I feel like they bring their region with them when they go on this global stage. What's at stake? I mean, you and Laura are playing on this stage. You're representing your region in these global rooms. What does it mean to be a Latin American futurist on the global stage?
So I will start. It's like really complex question, but I will start like saying that there's like a wide array of voices and perspectives, not only because of the culture or the perspective itself, also, as I mentioned before, because of the region that we are, right? Because, for example, in Mexico, that we are neighbors with the States, we obviously have like a little bit more capitalist, more corporate, more technological, techno-society, like not ourselves, but we are really like, it's coming to see that and to be part of that kind of narrative. Like, I think that it's really different from what I've seen in the global South. And also, all this like all that the colonialism like way that we've been carrying for a lot of years, because of heritage, or because we want to, or because it's part of the narrative that we want to take care of. But also I think that it also, it's a responsibility, because I think that despite other regions of the world, being a futurist in Latin America, you make something and you propose something and you create a initiative, and there's a huge impact, because we are full of needs that even if you make the smallest changes, it gets noticed, right? So I think that that's something that should inspire us. and should motivate us to really do things, because every small change, by small it can be, you can create a huge impact in a whole different levels. Like, doesn't matter if it's politics or it's just the city, public policy, governments. I think it just makes our lives better in a more powerful, relevant way.
The potential is so great. I love that as a call to action. If you're listening, if you're watching this, I know many of you consider yourselves foresight professionals, futurists, and you represent one of the many beautiful countries in Latin America. I think that's a great way to think about it. Is with great power comes great responsibility, and there's great opportunity to make transformative change. To not, don't be overwhelmed by it. Find your space, find your influence, and use foresight. Put your oxygen mask on first, and help others, as they say on the airplane. Laura, what are your thoughts about your role as a Latin American futurist on the global stage? Do you feel that responsibility? What's your perspective on that?
I have two interconnected ideas. First one is, yes, if you want to believe that change is possible, you have to believe in the power of one, and believe in the ripple effect, like in very unexpected ways, but it really does happen. So you just have to be patient and keep on seeing. But I really believe in that. It's kind of part of my daily actions. I don't give up with recycling. I don't give up with giving, with caring, because I know even if I get tired, I might inspire someone else that could do it better, or in a bigger way, or in a different way, or in another context. So I really, really think that we have to believe in the power of one, and keep giving this message that change is possible. And in the other hand, and we were talking about this as well, I told you the futurists are like a very generous community, and the way in, it's kind of easy. It's kind of accessible. But foresight is a practice that is not like, I did it and I'm here and I got to sit and I'm done.
I'm done.
Okay, you got to pedal like all the way through.
You have to pedal. You have to keep swimming, keep pedaling. So
foresight is futures. If you don't pedal, if you don't move, if you don't keep on working, researching, connecting, you just stay in the past. And if you want to keep on looking forward, there's like a lot of work to do. So you are welcome to come in, but if you are willing to do the work, I think it's not just for Latins, it's for everyone, but it's something like, hey, there's an opportunity, come on, it's here, you can have it, but you're going to be willing to give.
So I just love that perspective. I think you're right. It's true no matter where you're representing, what region you're from. But you have to pedal, like everyone is welcome, but just know that it's not like you're here, you do it once and you're done. We all have to pedal. We all have to move forward. I love that analogy. I mean, I've really loved the conversation that we've had this evening, this afternoon. I appreciate everyone from around the world joining us. I'm going to recap here in just a second, but before I do, I just wanted to remind everyone that if you are interested in continuing this conversation and exploring the future of cities, not just across Latin America, but across the world, I hope that you consider joining us in Mexico City. The program runs March 19th to the 21st. We are co-hosting it with Andrés and Change Consulting. Frank and I will be there, and we cannot wait to be in person, to host a think tank on the future of cities, to fuel this work with foresight. So if you are looking to level up your foresight skills, if you're novice or if you've been doing this for a while, there's a place for you in this program. And we do have Global South pricing available, but we encourage everyone to join us. We really want to create a global cohort. Applications close February 22nd. So if you at all have any interest, go ahead and apply. There's no requirement of payment on the application, just have take the application, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. So just to close out, so much greatness. I know these two incredible Foresight professionals, but I've learned so much. I've been humbled by this conversation. We recognize that the Latin American region is huge. It's diverse. It's not a monolith. There's not one perspective or even one dialect or one culture, but it is helpful to think in these dimensions as we think about the future of Foresight in this region. We firmly believe that it is in the DNA of this region to think about the future, and we need new narratives to help propel this region that has such huge potential into the future. And it's not just a Latin American issue or question. The world should be concerned and should have an interest in propelling this incredible region to the forefront, because it is the future of our globe. Alongside the continent of Africa, we know the demographics play in the favor of the Latin American region. So wherever you are, whether you think you care about LATAM or not, you should care about this conversation, because this is the future of our globally connected world, is this region, and empowering its youth and beyond into having more expectations about their future and moving them into the driver's seat is what we want to do. Lots of potential here from a regenerative perspective. We want to keep moving forward. We are revolutionaries. We can take notes from Afrofuturism and parallels. How can we learn from those other cultures and how they've embodied Foresight as a common narrative forward? And ultimately, we all bear the responsibility of supporting the creation of a culture of future thinkers across Latin America. What will you be doing tomorrow in your everyday, whether you live in one of these countries or you don't? What will you be doing tomorrow to help empower this region forward? I know I've gotten a lot to think about out of this conversation. Laura and Andres, I'd love for each of you to have a final point here before we close out. Laura, please.
Well, I would like to share that on a personal level or on a business level, whatever it fits you, thinking about futures is an investment portfolio that does not devaluate. So
I love that. I love that. That's absolutely a great perspective and a good way of looking at it. Andres, how about you?
So I think that Latin American futures is not necessarily a geographical thing, because I believe wherever part of the world a Latin is, you can feel it and you can sense it and you can live it, because of the food, the colors, the humor, the empathy, the warmth. So I think that that's also a great strength that we have, and I think that we have just in a good way take advantage of that and start conquering the world.
Absolutely. Bueno, with much amor, cariño, abrazos y besos, we leave you from beautiful Mexico and Florida. And we promise this is the first of many conversations. If you liked this conversation, we hope that you will subscribe to the TFSX channel. Send us a message. We'd love to continue this conversation online with you all. We'll let you know when there are future opportunities to join us for Wicked Opportunities Live, as well as the podcast series. And again, our program in Mexico City takes place March 19th to the 21st, our 3-day think tank on the future of cities, powered by Foresight. Andres will be there. I will be there. Frank will be there. I'm sure you missed Frank. He's been on the chat. We love you all. Thank you so much. Muchos besos, abrazos, cariños. Till next time, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.